Hello YouTube. So today, for Vlogmas Day 14, I want to talk about emotions. Specifically, I want to talk about the emotions that we often associate with a negative connotation. So, anger, sadness, frustration, disappointment, fear, maybe even a little bit of anxiety, but that one's kind of fuzzy. So, oftentimes, in the media that's represented and in our day-to-day lives, we don't do well with these emotions that tend to have a negative connotation. Humans as a whole don't enjoy experiencing them. They don't cope well with them often, and it is a real challenge to understand and acknowledge those feelings and do so in a healthy and productive way. So there is also a little bit of a discussion that you could make on this about it being falling on gendered lines, like men are allowed to be angry in media and women aren't, but that is an entirely other video. Today we are just talking about emotions with negative connotations and dealing with them. So I have always sort of struggled, especially with anger and frustration. One, because I cannot differentiate between the two of them. I also cannot differentiate between when someone is angry and when someone is angry with me. I interpret all of it, the anger, frustration, anger with me, and frustration with me, as anger at me. That's not very helpful. It doesn't lead to good, healthy, productive conversations. It makes me feel incredibly anxious and sad and worried that I have done something to upset someone, when in reality they could just be having a bad day. And that leads to a lot of insecurity that's not very helpful. So that's a thing that I struggle with and that I'm working on, and I've made some progress. And how I've made that progress is through a couple of things. One, I've been learning how to feel the things without acting on them. And two, I've sort of changed the way that I think about these emotions. So Katie Morton has some wonderful videos on mental health and literally anything under the mental health umbrella that you can think of. And one of her big tenets is setting healthy, respectful boundaries. And whenever she talks about that, she always brings up that one way to figure out what your boundaries are is to stop and look at how you're feeling. If you're feeling angry or frustrated, that is because you already know where your boundary is. It is the thing that is creating that anger. You feel angry with someone for not respecting your right to privacy. You feel frustrated because you have mentioned that this particular way of communicating with a person is not helpful to you and they are continuing to do it. And so taking that knowledge into my brain and really trying to internalize it and get through it has given me better tools to say, I am angry because this boundary has been violated, and that's not okay. And then, one, you're not having explosions from anger, because anger is often portrayed as very explosive, and it feels very explosive inside. But you don't have to explode to the outside. You can control that, and if you are aware of what it is you're feeling and why you're feeling it, it's a lot easier to say, this is what I'm feeling, this is why I feel it, we need to work on this. Or I need to work on this, or whatever applies. So that's been very helpful to me. The other thing is that there have been some psychology-oriented posts that I've seen come across my Tumblr dashboard that have said that emotions with negative connotations are actually very constructive when you understand that they are the tools telling you where you need to go. If you are disappointed in yourself or someone else or whatever, that's telling you what you want to work towards. If you're frustrated with something, it tells you that you need to work towards change. And that is actually really useful. Like, of course I feel this way because of this reason. Of course that's a thing I want to work towards. And then it becomes so much more okay and acceptable to say how you are feeling and how to get through it. And I think that it's really, really important to not discount these emotions because they're not fun to deal with, or because they're not well portrayed in media and in our day-to-day lives. Because to be a whole and complete person, of course, you are going to feel these things from time to time. And while it is perfectly noble to try to work towards not feeling that way, to completely cut that feeling off or to bottle it up and pretend that you don't experience that is to cut yourself off from progress, from growing, and from the wider array of the human emotion, like, or the human experience even. Because you have to take the good with the bad. And for me, that works really well for most of the negative emotions. The ones that I don't have a super great grip on are anxiety, because my brain is a little trigger happy when it comes to anxiety. Anxiety is useful because it tells you that you feel threatened and that maybe you are not in a safe space, or maybe what's happening around you doesn't feel safe. And that's really useful when it works correctly. When it doesn't, it's very difficult to rein it in and be like, okay, I understand that we are freaking out right now, but actually we're gonna be okay. And that can be a little bit difficult, but it's still loads better than trying to cut off all of those negative emotions as a whole. And that's really important. So I guess today's self-care challenge, if you will, is to spend some time thinking about how you feel and why you feel. Maybe something will click, and maybe you'll get a beautiful moment of clarity where you know your next step. So I will see you tomorrow. Bye, YouTube.